It's the start of April, which means it's time for the March market update. Welcome to RE Radar. I'm your host and realtor, Nathan Mathisen. And if you're a previous listener or watcher, thank you for coming back and supporting my channel. It means the world to me. Now, if you have not already, I would really appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button. And if this is your first episode, I understand the hesitancy not yet to hit the subscribe button, but I bet at the end of this, you'll be wanting to hit that button. Now, for those new watchers and listeners, let me just tell you a little bit about what RE Radar is all about. We are really all about education. Real estate is a very complex field with numerous moving parts and numerous different fields and industries involved in it. Obviously, for someone who is not involved in the industry, it can be very complex and daunting to think about trying to buy or sell a home. That's where RE Radar comes in as. I want this podcast to be a place for you to go and find videos that cover the exact real estate topic and question that you might have or are curious about. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I'll make sure to answer them on a future episode of RE Radar, or I will make sure to make a whole podcast about it if it is a more in-depth question like that. But enough with the purpose of this overall podcast. It's time to get into what this podcast right here is all about, and that is the March market update in Seattle for real estate. And quick recap, if this is your first one of these updates that I'm doing every month this year. So for January and February, what we've been seeing in the real estate market is some positive signs with more and more new listings coming onto the market. And of note quickly, if you are watching this episode on my YouTube channel, then you will be seeing screenshots of these graphs and data that I'm discussing. If you're just listening, then don't worry. I'll make sure to do a good job of detailing these numbers and making sure you get the same explanation and the same outcome. And where this data is coming from exactly is going to be residential and condo in the city of Seattle. Now, the first number I'm going to be looking at here and diving into is the median sale price for the month of March. That's a number I think everyone's always looking at. What is stuff going for? What's stuff selling at? So in March, that number went up from February. It is $850,000 in March, and in February it was $842,000. So just up about 1%, but still up. And the year over year, so March 2024, it is up 2.4% from the median price then that was $830,000. And that is something that I think is expected, at least I expected it, and I think is what we need in terms of 2025 bringing maybe a slightly lower amount of appreciation to homeowners than we have been seeing over the past 5 years, because we've kind of had just too big of a jump, I feel. There's been too large of a price surge over the last 4 years, and it's really ended up hurting this real estate market. I touched on it in a previous podcast. I think it might have been the January market update where I brought in a statistic from NAR, the National Association of Realtors, that showed appreciation in the state of Washington going up 49.5% from the start of COVID 2020 to 2024 end of. And in that time frame, people's income is not going up, matching the price of these home appreciation. So it is becoming harder and harder for people to buy homes, especially the first-time home buyers who don't have that equity of their current home to be able to leverage and use to assist in their purchase of a home today. So a small bump from February to March in appreciation, and that 2.4% year over year is a positive sign in my opinion. Things are still going up, but just not quite at that 5-6% range. And what's going to allow for home appreciation and prices to not just skyrocket over the course of this next year is going to be how many total listings we see come on the market. As long as the new listings keep popping up consistently and a greater number of them than the last couple of years come onto the market, prices should, I feel, in theory, stay in check. It's the old supply versus demand. When supply is higher than demand, prices will be kept in check and capped. Whereas if demand is exceeding supply, the prices then in Seattle would just go up and up and up. Now, of course, the demand in Seattle always seems to be beating the supply. But the key is here that I'm touching on. The supply is matching the demand in 2025, much closer so far than it had in 2023 and 2024. And that is why this real estate market in 2025, I feel, is much more favorable than these past couple of years have been. Now, did the trend of new listings skyrocketing keep up in March? Well, that's what I'm about to answer here. And the answer to that is somewhat. So, new listings in the month of March was 1,321. Compare that to March 2024, and it is up 25.5% when there was only 1,053 new listings last year. Now, in the grand scheme of things, though, looking at this big picture, over the last 15 years, 1,321 new listings in the month of March is not extraordinarily abnormal. Since 2011, it is the fifth highest, so it is on the top third of the last 15 years. The core takeaway, though, with this new listing stat is that it is the most new listings in the month of March over the past 3 years. So how it worked kind of was the COVID years, 2021, 2022, were the highest and third highest respectively over the last 15 years, followed by the lowest and second lowest totals in 2023 and 2024 of March. So the 15-year average has been about 1,250. So the new listings here in March of 1,321 is great. It's just slightly above average. And if you've watched the podcast here before on the radar, that's what I've been preaching and that's what I've been saying and what we need and what I expect to see in the year 2025. Real estate markets 2023 and 2024 were, just being honest, not good. They were two of the worst years historically in numerous different categories. Now, 2025, what this has shown the first few months, it is flipping a switch. We're moving back to that normalcy. We're moving back to the pre-COVID years in 2020 in the real estate market with the supply, it feels like. Now, getting into total homes for sale, which what that is just how many homes were for sale in the city of Seattle at the end of March. And it is up nicely at 1,700 compared to 1,533 in February. And it is actually up 46.6% from March 2024. Now, that's 1,700 homes for sale at the end of the month of March here in Seattle. It's actually the highest number since 2012 and 2011 in Seattle, when there was 2,304 and 3,449 homes for sale, respectively. Now, this is when I really started kind of connecting these numbers I'm discussing and laying out what's going to be my conclusion here for you shortly after I give you this little last bit of info, which is on closed sales. So start formulating, what do you think is going to be my wrap up here? What do you think I'm going to really close out the show with? But first, closed sales. So what they are this past March has been 771 closed sales, which, yes, it's up from the 633 in February, and it's up 7.8% from March 2024, but it is not really showing the record number or even the average number of the closed sales that we have been seeing historically over the last 15 years that I've got the data for here. This is actually the sixth lowest closed sales data in the month of March since 2011. Not crazy numbers, but it's still on the lower end when everything else seems to be on the higher end in terms of listings coming up. So closed sales just aren't quite there. And what that is telling me here is sellers are back. The sellers are here. They have returned to the real estate market in Seattle. They're ready to move after being on that hiatus following those COVID low interest rates where they locked in under 3%. They're ready to move because they have to, maybe for a job or whatever it may be. But the buyers, they're not yet there. They're just simply not yet there at the market like we need them to be. We are seeing the most homes for sale in the last 13 years because the sellers are returning, but the buyers aren't there for them to close those sales. Now, why is that? Well, I would point right to it, and I would bet most people are thinking the same thing right now. It comes down to those monthly prices and affordability, or lack thereof affordability in the housing market in Seattle. Let's go back to that median price I talked about. Anybody remember it? It was $850,000 this past March. So we'll take that median home and I'll run you through a little example. Now, let's say you put 20% down on a median home price at $850,000. You got some more closing costs. Using this mortgage calculator app right here, we've got an estimated closing cost of $186,564. You're then going to have monthly payments on that of $5,248 at an interest rate of 6.72%, which was about what the national average with a 20% down and the highest credit bracket at the start of April was, 6.72%. Now let's go back to 2017. So 8 years ago, where we saw similar new listing count in 1391 come onto the market that month of March. However, at the end of March that year, there were only 655 homes for sale compared to the, of course, 1,700 at the end of this year's March. And then that year, there were also 934 closed sales in that month. So about 150 more closed sales than this year's March. Why is that? Well, affordability. That median home sold price in March 2017 was $624,200. You throw in what mortgage rates were April 1st, 2017, 4.17%. So if someone's purchasing a home, 20% down, get out the mortgage calculator, you're going to need $137,000 to close versus $186 today, and you'll have a monthly payment of $3,049 compared to today of $5,248. Huge difference. We're talking $2,200 difference. Now I know, add in inflation, and that $3,049 monthly payment is going to go up to $3,969. So still over a $1,200 difference, and it's more expensive today. So I guess my conclusion right here that I'm getting at and that I'm going to discuss here with the month of March is real estate listing wise, in terms of on the sales side, we've really kind of returned to that normalcy. We've returned to the normal amount of people looking to move. It's just a matter of the buyers not being there yet. It's still too difficult for someone to be able to afford to buy a home in Seattle in today's market. So they're simply just waiting, or they're just not looking right now. And that is causing the homes for sale to be at an extraordinarily above average number. Well, closed sales, though, are still slightly below that 15-year average of 831. Now, of course, if you can afford to buy right now, and if you're in a position where you can afford to buy, I say go ahead and do it. I see no reason why you should try to wait to try to time interest rates, because that can be quite hard, and you are more likely to miss out on a home you really liked and potentially even end up paying more in the end for a home you don't even like as much as the one earlier you saw. Because remember, when interest rates get lower and lower, the demand is going to get higher and higher, which is going to increase competition, increase bidding wars, increase prices, increase all this stuff that you would much rather just want to buy when the rates are still not at a number everybody loves, leading to slightly lower competition, allowing for you to get that home you really do love. And then, of course, what can you do in 2-3 years, maybe when rates do dip lower and lower? Refinance it. There you go. Now, that is all the time I have today for this market update for the month of March in real estate here in Seattle, condo and residential. If you have not already, I would greatly appreciate if you could hit the like and subscribe button. It means a lot to me. And I hope that I am continuing to always provide you with that educational real estate content that you find interesting and helpful for you guys. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'll make sure to get to them in a later episode. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. This has been The Radar. Till next time. Peace.